The morning air was crisp and still as Ethan Walker sat on his porch, a steaming cup of coffee in his trembling hands. Buddy, his loyal German shepherd, lay curled at his feet, eyes scanning the quiet street, always alert, always watching. Ethan reached down and scratched behind the dog's ears. "You're the only thing keeping me sane, you know that?" he murmured. Buddy responded with a soft thump of his tail, leaning into Ethan's touch. The nightmares, the flashbacks, the crushing weight of survivor's guilt. Buddy had been there through it all. When Ethan's world threatened to spiral out of control, Buddy's steady presence grounded him. Without Buddy, Ethan wasn't sure how he'd survive. But the next morning, Buddy was gone. Ethan awoke to the suffocating silence of an empty house. He called Buddy's name, expecting the familiar jingle of tags and the rhythmic click of paws on the hardwood floor. Nothing. His stomach twisted. He checked every room, every corner, his heart pounding harder with each step. The front door hung slightly open, cold morning air creeping in. Ethan stumbled onto the porch, barefoot, eyes scanning the street. "Buddy!" he shouted, voice cracking. There were paw prints in the damp earth, leading away from the house. Panic surged through him, cold and suffocating. Buddy never wandered off, never. Ethan sprinted down the steps, following the trail through the neighborhood, knocking on doors, desperate for answers. "He was always with me," he muttered under his breath, the weight of loss settling in his chest. Hours passed. Ethan's search grew frantic. Posters hastily made and plastered across town. Each passing car, each barking dog, made his heart lurch with hope, only to be crushed again. His sister, Rachel, found him pacing in front of the grocery store, hands shaking, eyes wild with exhaustion. "Ethan," she said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Come home. We'll find him." Ethan shrugged off her touch. "I can't go home, Rachel. Not without him." Rachel sighed, worry etched across her face. "Let's retrace your steps. Someone has to have seen something." Together, they combed through the streets, asking shop owners and neighbors. Then, a phone call came, a gruff voice saying he'd seen a dog matching Buddy's description near the abandoned industrial district. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. He hadn't been near that place since returning from Afghanistan. The smell of rust and oil, the echoes of heavy machinery, it all reminded him too much of the war. But he had no choice. The industrial zone was worse than Ethan remembered. Crumbling warehouses, broken windows, and a suffocating silence that made his skin crawl. He moved cautiously, his breath fogging in the cold air. Near a rusted fence, he found it. Buddy's worn collar, lying in the dirt. Ethan's knees buckled as he picked it up, his chest heaving. He clenched the leather strap in his fist, blinking away tears. Rachel crouched beside him. "We'll find him, Ethan. I promise." Ethan swallowed hard, staring at the darkened warehouse ahead. "I have to go in," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Rachel hesitated. "Are you sure? This place—" "I have to," he said, pushing forward. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Ethan's footsteps echoed through the vast emptiness, each step heavier than the last. Then he heard it, a soft whimper. His heart leapt as he followed the sound, weaving through rusted machinery and debris. "Buddy!" The whimper grew louder. Ethan turned a corner and froze. A group of rough-looking men huddled near a makeshift pen where several dogs cowered, including Buddy. Ethan saw the fear in Buddy's eyes, his ears pinned back, his body trembling. Rage boiled beneath Ethan's skin. He didn't hesitate. His military instincts kicked in. He grabbed a nearby metal pipe and stepped into the dim light. "Let him go," he growled, his voice sharp and dangerous. The men looked up, surprised. One of them sneered, "Get lost, old man." Ethan clenched his fists. "Not without my dog." Buddy whined, pressing against the bars of the cage. Rachel had already called the police, and sirens wailed in the distance. The men scattered, leaving Ethan to force open the cage. As soon as the door swung open, Buddy lunged into his arms, licking his face frantically. Ethan buried his face into the dog's fur, holding him tightly. "I'm so sorry, boy," he whispered. Back home, Ethan sat on the floor with Buddy curled against him, safe and sound. Rachel sat nearby, watching him carefully. "You okay?" she asked softly. Ethan stroked Buddy's fur, his voice steadier than before. "I will be. Rachel smiled. "You can't do this alone, you know." Ethan met her gaze and nodded. "I know." In the weeks that followed, Ethan took Buddy everywhere. They walked through town together, helped at the local shelter, and even started therapy again. The fear of losing Buddy had forced Ethan to realize something. He couldn't keep shutting people out. Buddy had brought him back from the brink once, and Ethan vowed never to take that for granted again. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ethan ran his fingers through Buddy's fur. "Guess you're stuck with me, huh?" Buddy looked up at him, tongue lolling out, his tail thumping happily against the floor. Ethan smiled, a real, genuine smile, because in the end, Buddy didn't just save his life. He reminded him that life was worth living.